namaste to all our viewers there of Headlines Today. I'm Smita Sharma, and this is a very special broadcast in a country with a very rich, in fact, cultural heritage and history, but which has seen conflict over the decades, where death, destruction, terror attacks are a harsh reality, where being a woman, in fact, is not easy. She is breaking stereotypes, she's making headlines, and she's all for women empowerment. She's a first lady who, unlike her predecessors, is in public life and is working towards the cause of women empowerment, and especially the rehabilitation of the internally displaced people. She is with us today exclusively on Headlines Today. Joining me here is the First Lady of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, Ms. Rula Ghani. Ms. Ghani, such a pleasure to have you here. Also on this special broadcast, the Ambassador of Afghanistan to India, Mr. Shaida Abdali, and the FICCI Ladies Organization President, Ms. Archana Gupta. In fact, all the flow members, the wonderful delegates are here with us on Headlines Today. They will, of course, have a lot more to ask to the First Lady. Excellency, if I may just begin with, is this really your first visit to India, or have you had previous visits as well?
I've been in Delhi twice, but for short vacations.
And this was
a couple of weeks each.
So before I ask you how your country has changed, maybe I should get a glimpse of how do you think India and Delhi has changed since your last visit?
Well, I think Delhi is a beautiful city. I'm really glad that you use the liquefied gas, so pollution has almost disappeared. I think it's great. Oh, you don't seem to agree. You don't seem to agree. Okay.
There could be a...
Maybe I've
mixed feelings about that here.
I've been going around in air-conditioned cars, so probably this is the case. It feels very good inside the car. No, I can tell that it's a vibrant city, but this is only my second day here today.
Right.
So
it's only a visit to Humayun's tomb as well.
Yes, this morning I did my little cultural pilgrimage to the Humayun tomb. It's a beautiful place. And I'm very interested in the irrigation system that you have there. I mean, the water flowing system there. It has a whole history. And fortunately, the guide I had was very knowledgeable. He said I was the first person who wanted to visit the garden, really. And we did visit the tomb, but it's an unbelievable work of engineering, all these canals and how the water flows. And there is a whole history because various regimes, apparently when the British came, they removed certain things and covered others. Anyway, it was a very interesting visit, yes.
Now coming back, of course, to the role that you're playing today, Ms. Ghani, what does being a First Lady mean for you? What does it mean to you?
Well, it's first of all a privilege and an honor, something I was not expecting, but it's a responsibility too. I feel if ever I have to be the symbol of a country, I have to understand the country. And this is why my first action was to open a small office where people can come and see me so that I can understand what are their concerns and what are their demands. So
I'm very tempted to ask, though, why were you not expecting? When President Ghani, of course, took that political plunge, I'm sure you would have thought that one day your husband would go on to become the president of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan.
We lived a very comfortable life. He was a scholar. He did lots of research. It gave me time to take care of my garden. And I was very comfortable where I was. But if his destiny was to become the president, I was going to support him. So maybe I was in denial. But once it happened, it happened.
When he did become the president, one of the first things that he came out and said to the people was he thanked you, the family, for the support and the encouragement. Did it surprise you, or is it always been about his encouragement, really?
I knew that he would make some mention, but I was surprised by the fact that he really went to lengths to explain that, the role that I played in his life and in our life in Afghanistan. And I think he instead of just saying, he was showing respect to me.
Wonderful. We can maybe perhaps open up the floor for some questions. Are there? Yes, please go ahead.
Good evening. The changing role of the First Lady in today's diplomacy. Really like to know how it is and what is your views on it.
As I said, these are uncharted waters. And so I try to see what would be feasible in terms of feasibility. Is it possible to meet with women entrepreneurs? Yes, it is. You have chambers, and here I am. It's also, I try to think what can really help with how I want the country to develop, how I want my fellow countrymen to have new opportunities and all that. So it's basically, I'm very clear about what I'm trying to do. I want to facilitate things in Afghanistan. And I think through and I propose. And if ever it's possible, I do it.
You spend a lot of time, in fact, listening into people and their problems.
Yes.
When they come and speak to you, what is the kind of hopes that they have? What is the kind of Afghanistan that they want to be built going ahead?
In most of the cases, it's women delegations. I've had some men come, and I interact with foreign agencies and NGOs and all that. But women are really very happy to have somebody they can come to. Unfortunately, when they go to ministries, often the case is that they have to wait for hours before somebody notices they are there, and maybe somebody will see them. Whereas at my office, there is a very clear procedure. They call, they get an appointment, they come, they're told from 10 to 11, I'm there from 10 to 11. So it's very predictable. I am there, I'm listening. I enjoy it. I have to say I'm a people's person. So I enjoy sitting and talking with the women or with whoever comes. And what they expect, they expect to be received with respect and that. And then they say what they have to say. Sometimes they're really coming from situations that are very harsh, and they tell me, oh, you've forgotten us. We are in very faraway provinces, no services, nobody comes to see us. Just because there is a whiff of insecurity, everybody takes the excuse not to do anything for us. But, I can't do much for them, but at least I register what they say. And, I try in other places like here to say this is a situation. So somehow I give them back their self-respect. I give them back some encouragement. I encourage them to do things for themselves.
Which we are sure means a lot to all of them. In fact, before I take in another question, if Ambassador Abdali, I could ask you one question here. Ma'am, of course, came back to Afghanistan in 2002 with President Ghani. From 2002 to now, how has Afghanistan really changed, especially for women? To the outside world, perhaps there are stereotypes that we think of when we think of Afghanistan. But how do you think really has the ground reality in a way changed, especially for women?
Well, a lot has changed. The very fact today that we see in this delegation of Afghan women sitting here in this group representing the Afghan businesses from the women's side is a change. And this is just a small example. And we see the business in Afghanistan is, are flourishing. And the woman has a great stake and a participation in this business. So the difference, I will conclude, is the difference of sky and earth.
And I can also tell you for sure, I have a lot of, in fact, friends in Afghanistan, friends who are women, and of course, men and their wives. And they really seem to have learned a lot of Hindi, that entrepreneurial streak in them by actually watching Bollywood movies and serials. And I'm amazed. They speak much better Hindi than most of us here in India. So, I think that there's that streak, there's that energy to learn new things very easily amongst women there.
Flo has been working in the field of women's development and empowerment for the last 30 years. What, in your estimation, can we do together, women to women, for to improve relationships and for empowering women in both our countries?
Well, the first step to empowerment is education. And you seem to have already developed training and training sessions, thought through how to help women become entrepreneurs, how to help women figure out what are their skills and how they can develop them. And I think in a first step, this might be a great help if we can share that. Maybe by you sending trainers to Kabul, or by us managing to send a group of women here. That would be, I'm thinking along these lines, and I'm sure there are other possibilities too.
It would be a privilege.
Thank you.
There's a lot to explore. Yes, please go ahead with the question.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Smita Agarwal, representing the Northeast chapter, which is as far from Delhi as Afghanistan is from here. So, and the Northeast has seen a lot of conflict, like your country has. Now, both the areas, I think, are returning to peace and normalcy. How do you think you can overcome the challenges and create opportunities for the women and youth in Afghanistan in the global scenario? Thank you.
It's a mouthful. As I said, education is the first step. You're talking about countries coming out of conflict. One aspect of education will be a peace curriculum, trying to teach again people how to live together harmoniously, how to resolve conflicts in a calm manner, mediation, all that. Globally, I'm still not yet thinking globally. I'm thinking still the first step of developing their skills and helping them become self-confident, helping them understand how to do branding, marketing, all the steps of developing a business. There are already a few organizations, NGOs that do that. The problem is that we have a lot of NGOs that work each one separately. And maybe a role I can play is to try and bring together all the NGOs that are doing the same thing to kind of come all under one umbrella and do one system, or maybe licensing, certain skills. I'm only working to that far. I haven't thought farther. You're asking about the global market. Of course, there are enormous possibilities, but I have not yet reached them.
In terms of women's empowerment, do you think the way Afghanistan is moving ahead today, there is a democracy, a thriving democracy. It is a long-term, of course, proposition to try and restructure organizations. Mm-hmm. But within that, in the short term, you can try and work towards women empowerment, that there are ways, of course, to try and achieve it?
Sure. I mean, it's just psychologically to tell the woman you can go ahead and if you have an idea, go for it. If you want to create an institution, go for it. I'll be there. I'll support you vocally. I will encourage you. Yes, they can. It's a little bit like I think a great number of you are all mothers here. And when you have a child and you're rearing a child, there is a period where you have to encourage the child. We call it positive encouragement. You have to help them find their strength, and you have to help them decide what they want to be in life. And it's a little bit the same kind of parallel. I sound very ambitious. I'm not going to be able to talk to every woman. But I think the mere fact that I will say, you can do it. They will do it.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
perhaps the slogan there as well. Yes, let's get a question from both of you, please.
Ma'am, good evening. My question to you is, while you see various opportunities for development of women and youth in Afghanistan, and that you can do it, what are the challenges that you think that you face for the development of women and youth in Afghanistan and globally? Thank you.
Well, the challenge, there is an expression you use a lot here in India. It's changing the mindsets.
Yes.
So you'll understand what I mean. But in my case, I was married 40 years ago, and I came to live in Afghanistan, and I lived with my in-laws. So I had a very close knowledge of Afghan culture at the time. Then we went to the States for my husband's PhD doctorate, and we were stuck there with all that was happening at home. We were told not to come back, so we lived in the States. When I came back in 2001, 2002, the difference was incredible. And the difference was that society, the fabric of society had been ripped apart. And that's normal because families were divided. Some people disappeared. Some people went to another country. You know, it was like the society was in shambles. And when this happens, the values disappear too. And when values disappear, the first ones to suffer are women. Because people start losing their respect to women, and and
So
all the problems
societal
that come from
mindsets
there.
are perhaps common to challenges that women face everywhere, be it India, be it Afghanistan, be it elsewhere.
Exactly the same challenges. But what I'm trying to say is that in my case, at least I am going to try to revive the traditional values that I knew in 1975. Because in those days, women were respected. In my husband's family, maybe half, I'm talking about extended family, half the women went to work. There were teachers, there was a historian, there was a hospital director, there was a counselor, they were working women. And the others stayed home. But there was no difference between the ones that were home and those who went out to work were never told, oh, what are you doing? You're going out. No. And when my mother-in-law went to the market, she was never harassed. Never. Nobody ever said anything. On the contrary, they would help her carry her things and all that. We have lost the respect for women, and what I would like is to reinstate respect to women, for women within the family, in public places, and within the workplace.
We'll just take in one last question
Her Excellency,
before we wrap up.
Her Excellency, as kids in India, we all were told about a story of Kabuliwala.
Yes.
And he was a just man. All our human societies were tribally organized, and so were the Afghans. So what went wrong in your country?
War. I mean, conflict. That's what went wrong. And when the circle of violence starts, it's a vicious circle. It doesn't stop. Because one side wins, then the other one fights back, then a third side comes back. This is war. I mean, I don't know what's happening the world over. I mean, look at the Middle East. I really don't understand why all these countries are having all these fights within themselves. And that is it's very easy to destroy. I come from Lebanon, we had a civil war there. And it takes maybe one bomb to destroy a building. It takes, 12 months, 14 months to rebuild it.
Absolutely.
It takes a long
But
time.
perhaps conflicts also make people more resilient. And that's why before we end the show, if I may ask you, you are here in India. From India, what is, you're hoping to be a takeaway which can help women in your country rebuild?
First of all, I can tell them that they can, because women in India are doing it. Why shouldn't they? Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is to tell them that they have support, that you have Indian sisters that want to support you, want to help you. So don't think that you are fighting this fight just on your own. No, you have support. And what I also would like to say is that women in India have become secure enough that they are participating alongside men in many venues, be it political, economic, and all this. And I think I will tell them that this is the future. It's not a war between men and women. No, it's just allowing the woman to become a productive member of society next to the man.
Ma'am, just one last question. Of course, women's empowerment also comes through political empowerment.
Yes.
Are you hopeful one day Afghanistan will have a woman president too?
It does not need to be a woman president. I mean, there are very good women that can be president, and there are very good men that could be president. And sometimes it's a question of destiny, who becomes president and who doesn't. But I think I want women to be able to live their life fully. That's what I want. It's not, and they can live their life fully maybe if their ambition is to have a small business. Let it be. If their ambition is to become a professor, let it be. If their ambition is to become a president, a minister, or a deputy, let it be. Let the women decide what they want to be.
Yes. So let the woman decide is the key. It was such a privileged interaction with you. Ms. Ghani, maybe have a round of applause. And thank you so much, of course, Ambassador Abdali, Archana as well, for making this interaction possible. So here was, of course, the First Lady of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan with wonderful views, and she is like this breath of fresh air. Of course, that country has a lot to be proud about, and I'm sure that women in the years to come will make Afghanistan even more proud. If you have been watching the special broadcast on Headlines Today, thanks a lot. News and updates continue. Today, they will, of course, have a lot more to ask to the First Lady. Excellency, if I may just begin with, is this really your first visit to India, or have you had previous visits as well?
I've been in Delhi twice, but for short vacations.
And this was
a couple of weeks each.
So before I ask you how your country has changed, maybe I should get a glimpse of how do you think India and Delhi has changed since your last visit?
Well, I think Delhi is a beautiful city. I'm really glad that you use the liquefied gas.
Hello and namaste to all our viewers there of Headlines Today. I'm Smita Sharma, and this is a very special broadcast in a country with a very rich, in fact, cultural heritage and history, but which has seen conflict over the decades, where death, destruction, terror attacks are a harsh reality, where being a woman, in fact, is not easy. She is breaking stereotypes, she's making headlines, and she's all for women empowerment. She's a First Lady who, unlike her predecessors, is in public life and is working towards the cause of women empowerment, and especially the rehabilitation of the internally displaced people. She is with us today exclusively on Headlines Today. Joining me here is the First Lady of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, Ms. Rula Ghani. Ms. Ghani, such a pleasure to have you here. Also on this special broadcast, the Ambassador of Afghanistan to India, Mr. Shaida Abdali, and the FICCI Ladies Organization President, Ms. Archana Gupta. In fact, all the flow members, the wonderful delegates are here with us on Headline.
I did my little cultural pilgrimage to the Humayun tomb. It's a beautiful place. And I'm very interested in the irrigation system that you have there. I mean, the water flowing system there. It has a whole history. And fortunately, the guide I had was very knowledgeable. He said I was the first person who wanted to visit the garden, really. And we did visit the tomb, but, it's unbelievable. So pollution has almost disappeared. I think it's great. You don't seem to agree. You don't seem to agree. Okay.
There could be
maybe I've
mixed feelings about that here.
I've been going around in air-conditioned cars, so probably this is the case. It feels very good inside the car. No, I can tell that it's a vibrant city, but you know, this is only my second day here today.
Right.
So it's
You had
only
a visit
just
to Humayun's tomb as well.
Yes, this morning I